Steam plumed past Freyja Jónsdóttir's office window in fat, lazy curls, softening the hard edges of the lava fields that surrounded the Mirabird geothermal spa. Dawn had not yet climbed over the Verfjall crater, but she was already bent above the laptop that gathered readings from 36 underwater sensors. Most numbers glowed their usual comforting green, 41.8 digi, 42.1 digi, 41.9 digi. One, however, blinked orange, SEL pool 46.3 digi. Brynja rubbed her eyes. Cell pool rarely budged from 42. A 4-degree jump in the middle of the night could not be blamed on a playful geyser. The spring, tapped in 1998, was as stable as the old wool socks she wore inside her rubber boots. She jotted the anomaly in her notebook, zipped up her parka, and walked the wooden boardwalk toward the milky blue water. Cell pool rested in a natural bowl of black basalt. At this hour it was empty, its usual patrons still lingering over Hotel Skya, or if they were ambitious, skiing in the hills. Steam drifted across the surface like ghosts changing partners. Brynja knelt by the sensor pole, pressed the reset button, and waited for a new reading. 42.0 degrees C. Behave yourself, she murmured, though a shiver prickled her collar. Nothing in the water looked unusual. No fresh vents had opened. No sulphurous gurgle hinted at unrest. So she chalked it up to yet another stubborn gadget and returned to prepare for the morning soak rush. The next day, at 07, the overnight log told a different story. From 02:15 to 2:40, Cell Pool had climbed again, peaked at 46.2 degrees, then cooled as neatly as a pot lifted from the hob. The surge hadn't woken any guests or tripped the new safety alarms, but the pattern was too precise for geology. Einar Sigurgeirsson, the spa's handyman and part-time philosopher, found Brynja frowning at the screen. Another tantrum? Look. She swiveled the monitor. It's heating up like someone took a kettle to it. Einar's brows knitted under frosted eyebrows. Kids dumping hot rocks. At 2:30 in the morning, and every spike is identical. She tapped the sawtooth curve. He scratched his beard. Ghosts, then? Brynja managed a smile, though worry gnawed her. She set a fresh batch of batteries in the sensor, programmed a higher resolution log, and tried to forget the matter while serving customers blueberry-infused water and cinnamon Kleiner. Yet by dusk, the prospect of another anomalous reading pulled at her like a loose thread. That night, she volunteered for the 11 to 3 shift under the pretense of testing new LED walkway lights. The wind had calmed, leaving the air so still she could hear distant sheep bells. Green ribbons of aurora trembled overhead, reflected dimly in the steaming pools. Wrapped in a thick wool coat, she meandered between deck chairs, occasionally clicking her flashlight, though she knew every knot in the timber by heart. At 2:12, Cell Pool sighed with a faint plop. Brynja crouched behind a planter of dwarf birch and watched the surface. Concentric ripples spread, then stilled. A minute later, a darker shape breached briefly, a hand, before disappearing beneath the mist. She stuffed a thermometer into her pocket and crept to the edge. The water was agitated, swirling faster than the natural spillway. She dipped the thermometer, 45.9 degrees C. Something down there was heating on command. Her heart hammered, but training as lifeguard outmatched fear. She retrieved the long-handled retrieval hook used to fish out lost goggles, reached below the surface where ripples converged, and felt the tip knock against metal. A moment's fumbling, an ooze of bubbles, and Brynja hauled up a stainless steel cylinder about the size of a thermos. Unlike the volcanic stones that littered the bottom, the cylinder was smooth and warm, unnaturally so. A faint green LED glowed through a pressure valve. Brynja slipped the object into a mesh bag, replaced the sensor to avoid suspicion, and hurried to the laundry cottage. The washer hummed, hiding any metallic clank as she set the cylinder on a folding table. A screw cap released with a hiss of hot air, carrying the tang of electronics rather than sulfur. Inside lay a foam cradle, a hand-warmer satchel still sizzling, and 3 slim solid-state drives wired to a palm-sized circuit board. Files, not fish, were cooking her water. Einar, awakened by her frantic knock, stared sleepily at the drives. Smuggling computer parts through a spa? They're not just parts, Brynja said. They're loaded with data. The heater pad keeps condensation away, and it raises the pool temperature just enough to mask any thermal camera looking for them. Einar whistled. Ingenious and daft. Why hide them at all? Brynja thought of the European Data Residency Act, the fines for exporting medical or biometric info, the stories of hackers sneaking terabytes across borders in camera SD cards. Whatever's on these shouldn't leave Iceland. Call Sigga, Einar urged, meaning Detective Sigridur Thrastadottir, Brynja's cousin in Akureyri. This is police work. After we know more. Brynja's cosy mysteries devoured on winter nights made detection sound fun. Real life required proof. What if the culprit is a guest, or one of our own staff? Einar's silence meant possibility. They replaced the drives and cylinder, but Brynja swapped the chemical hand warmer with a rechargeable heat coil linked to a pebble-sized GPS beacon from the spa's Lost Hiker kit. She logged the cylinder back into its basalt hiding place, double-checked the sensor, and pretended to slip on the iced boardwalk so her wet footprint wouldn't look odd. The following evening, Brynja and Einar sat in the broom closet that offered a narrow view of Sel Pool, sharing a thermos of cocoa and ginger cookies. Midnight passed. Only the hiss of steam and distant gull cries broke the hush. At 1:47, a shadow detached from the low wall, a figure in a full neoprene dry suit, face mask gleaming. The person waded into waist-deep water, felt beneath the stones, produced the cylinder, and slid it into a mesh backpack. In less than a minute, the thief was out, padding toward the staff parking lot. Einar's truck was parked beyond the first bend of the access road. They waited until the thief's rear lights flicked on, then followed at a respectful distance. The beacon, monitored on Brynja's phone, pulsed a breadcrumb trail north along the ring road, then west onto an unpaved spur that dead-ended at an abandoned herring processing shed. The van's brake lights winked as it rolled inside. Einar cut his engine. Shall we knock and ask for a massage voucher? Tomorrow, Brynja said, adrenaline giving way to common sense. Now we get Sigga. Detective Thrastadottir did not appreciate being roused at 3:30, yet her annoyance thawed when she heard illegal data export and GPS evidence. By sunrise, her team stood with Brynja outside the rust-streaked shed, coffee steam mingling with the sea brine. Inside, they found a makeshift server farm. Stackable plastic crates held dozens of the same stainless cylinders, each wired to power in parallel. The racks, warmed by geothermal hand warmers, replaced daily. A portable satellite dish poked through a hole in the corrugated roof like a curious periscope. One man dozed in a swivel chair. Oscar Goodman, an IT contractor whose company serviced half the hotels around Lake Mývatn, including Mirabird's reservation system. His dry suit hung dripping near a space heater, beside a half-eaten bag of pilsur buns. Oscar blinked awake to a semicircle of officers and murmured the universal word, "Uh-oh." The initial interview, while officers catalogued evidence, revealed a scheme both daring and ridiculous. Some foreign clients, corporate, possibly criminal, definitely wealthy, wanted data sets extracted from Nordic servers, but invisible to customs. Oscar offered a solution inspired, he bragged, by an old spy novel he'd read on the ferry. Hide encrypted drives inside geothermal pools, where steady temperatures cloaked them from thermal imaging drones that patrolled harbours. He could swap full cylinders for empty ones every few nights, kayak them to a trawler in Scalfandi Bay, and earn enough Bitcoin to retire in Tenerife. His only expense, bulk hand warmers and a membership card to Brynja's spa. That member discount is going in my report, Brynja muttered. Yet the evidence, piles of drives, shipping schedules, a ledger of cryptocurrency receipts, was not enough for the district prosecutor. Chain of custody required that police catch Oscar in the act, not napping after. They needed one more drop. Sigga asked Brynja carefully if she would stage it. Brynja stared into her cousin's earnest eyes. You want me to reopen the spa like nothing happened? Just one night. Let him believe the hide is intact. We'll position divers and cameras. It will be safe. Safe, Einar echoed, doubtful. But cozy, Brynja said wryly. Then she nodded. Mirabird had always protected people's secrets. Heartbreaks confessed in steam, proposals whispered under the aurora. It would survive one more. 2 evenings later, the aurora returned, pale silver this time, like cautious curtains. The spa bustled. The police had discreetly offered free passes to 20 off-duty colleagues, so the pools looked lively. Brynja, in her usual navy fleece, handed out towels, careful that her hands didn't tremble. Somewhere among the tourists lounged 2 undercover divers in bathing caps. A drone hovered beyond sightline. Just before 1:30, a familiar shape shuffled across the deck. Oscar, in a chunky wool sweater, smiling at the front desk employee who stamped his wristband. Brynja watched on the corner monitor as he stashed his backpack under a bench, peeled off the sweater to reveal the dry suit, and eased into cell pool. She could almost feel the sensor bump as he replaced the cylinder while sliding an identical one out. Brynja pictured the GPS inside transmitting, moved. A quiet thrill rose in her chest. Oscar climbed out, shook water from his hood, retrieved his backpack, and made for the gate. 2 plainclothes officers flanked him casually, tourists finishing their dip, while another pair waited beyond the gift shop exit. Brynja forced herself to pour coffee for a guest from Akureyri, who was, in fact, Sigga in a floppy sun hat. The arrest happened out of sight. The only disturbance inside was a sudden cheer from 3 officers exaggerating their enthusiasm for the northern lights to distract curious patrons. Half an hour later, Sigga returned, muzzle of her thermos steaming, to tell Brynja it was over. He confessed to everything again. Said he improvised after your sensor flagged the first night. He'd planned to use Lake Mývatn proper, but the way you keep tourists away at night made him pick the spa. You foiled him with customer service. Brynja released a breath she hadn't realized she'd trapped in her ribs. Will Mirabird be on the evening news? Probably. Iceland's first data bath smuggler. That headline writes itself, but you'll come out as heroine, I promise. That means I'll need another shelf for TripAdvisor certificates. Brynja laughed, light-headed. When the final patrol car drove off, the spa grew quiet again. Einar emerged from the chemical closet where he had monitored live feeds like a proud uncle. Your sleuthing puts Agatha Christie to shame, Brynja mean. So long as the only body we find is Einar snoozing in the staff room, she said, thwacking him playfully with a towel. Help me install the new sign before we open tomorrow. At sunrise, they bolted a small wooden plaque beside the usual "no running" and "shower before entering" rules. It read, "No storing of digital media in pools. Water temperature monitored." The first customers, a honeymooning couple from Barcelona, paused to photograph the quirky warning. Brynja merely smiled and offered them lavender-scented face masks. By noon, chatter about the night's arrest flitted through the lounge, evolving into fanciful theories. Russian spies, cryptocurrency mines, secret climate data. Brynja let the rumours float like steam, interfering only to correct wild guesses about kidnappings. A cosy mystery, she thought, needed a touch of exaggeration. Late in the afternoon, Brynja finally allowed herself to soak in Cell Pool, the pool sin-free and comfortable at 42 degrees. She closed her eyes, letting warmth unknot muscles wound tight over 3 sleepless nights. Footsteps approached. When she opened her eyes, Einar offered a plate across the water, kleiner, sugared, and still warm. "You earned these." Detective fuel. She bit into the pastry. Clouds parted overhead, and sunlight washed the lava ridge a brilliant amber. For a heartbeat, Brynja was certain she heard Cell Pool sigh in relief. "Think the geothermal spirits are pleased?" Einar asked. Spirits, sensors, cousins, it took all of them. She stretched her arms across the water. "But the spa is safe, our guests are safe, and my curiosity is temporarily satisfied." Einar chuckled. Temporarily. Brynja tipped back her head. Beyond the rising steam, the sky was impossibly blue, unburdened, vast with possibility. And if one day another number turned orange on her screen, she would be ready, with sensors, skepticism, and perhaps a fresher batch of Kleiner. For now, though, Mira Bird hummed like a content kettle. The only bites allowed inside carried in the phones of relaxed visitors, taking selfies beneath the northern lights. And that, Brynja decided, was precisely warm enough.